Welcome to my new governor prediction for the month of July. So let's start. And there we go. So first of all, let's just talk about some noteworthy races that have changed. For example, in Colorado. And now let's go to 2018. So you can see right here that he won here by almost 11%. And now in 2022, he's going to go against Haiti, the Republican, and the Constitution Party will actually field a candidate in this race, which is why I am now kind of leaning towards Polis winning here by a safe margin, alongside that of the fact that Colorado is quite progressive, so I'm changing this to a safe margin. Win for the Democrats right here. And now for the governor race in Illinois. After the primaries in June, we were able to see that Darren Bailey will actually be the GOP nominee. And in my opinion, I think that he was the weaker one. I think Richard Irvin would have been more likely to be able to defeat Pritzker, even though I think that he would have only been able to drop the margin down to likely. But I think that Darren Bailey just doesn't fit Illinois quite well, a bit too conservative. And I see JB Pritzker winning here by around 12 to 14%. And as I was saying, let's just move on to other races. So in Texas, I see Greg Abbott easily winning here by at least 12%, if not more. I just don't see Beto O'Rourke doing well in this red wave. While for the state of Florida, we don't know who the Democrat nominee will be in the end, but I think that Ron DeSantis will easily win this re-election quite by a safe margin. I think he's probably going to win by at least 8%, but if it's Charlie Crist, I might drop it from a safe margin to a likely margin. If not, then I think that this race will depend a lot on what happens in the economy and all that sort of stuff. But for now, I'm going to leave it as a safe race at the moment. But it could easily drop down to likely, depending on how things are. But for now, it's safe. And now for other races, for New York and Ohio quite easily, I see Mike DeWine easily winning here by at least 12%. Maybe if the third-party candidate does something crazy, but I doubt it would hurt DeWine. Maybe even hurts Democrats more. Well, for the race in New York, as many of you know, it's going to be Hochul versus Lee Zeldin, and I just don't see much happening in this race. Let's just go briefly to the polling. I think that Hochul should be able to win here by, I'm guessing, late 10s, 18%, 19%, if not more. And there's really not that much to say about this race, so let's go to the likely races. So first of all, an easy one is Kansas. For this race, I don't see incumbent Democrat governor Laura Kelly winning re-election because of how red her state is. It really doesn't matter who the GOP nominee will win in the end. At the end of the day, this state is so red that I see the GOP easily winning this seat and winning by at least 5% to 7%. And yes, let's move on to the race in Rhode Island. It's going to be Dan McKee, most likely against a Republican nominee. We don't know who yet it will be, but I think that this race will actually narrow down from other times. I think it will not be a solid win for the Democrats. McKee should be able to win here by anywhere from 7 to 9%, but it depends on the red wave and many other things of the economy and that sort of stuff. And now for the race in Georgia. As many of you know, it's going to be Brian Kemp against Stacey Abrams, and it's a rematch from 2018. And for the polling in this race, most people have this either as a toss-up, lean R, or a likely R, but in my opinion, this race will depend a lot on the economy. I think that if the economy is really poor and gas prices are really bad, thankfully this past month, gas prices have gotten better to a certain degree and has dropped, but I expect them to rise up again. And come November, I think that Brian Kemp will be able to barely win this race by a likely margin of 5% spot on, just above that threshold needed to be a likely state. And now, so for the lean races in this prediction, let's start off in the race in Arizona. This has gotten more interesting since in the Republican primary, it's really Kari Lake against Karen Taylor. And if you notice the recent polls, I'm not sure if they're going to show them here, but they're neck and neck essentially. And Kari Lake and Karen Taylor are really in a neck and neck race at the moment. And if Donald Trump is able to get, more momentum to Kari Lake, I assume she will win. But I wouldn't be surprised if Karen Taylor comes from behind and swoops the nomination away from her. While for the Democrats, it's basically going to be Katie Hobbs. And let's just go to the polling right at the bottom. And as you can see, not that great of polling, but in my opinion, whether it's Kari Lake or Taylor Robson, I see the GOP winning this race by a lean margin of, I'm guessing, quite faithful that it will be a lean race of 2 to 4%. And now for other races. So for the race in Connecticut, I'm sorry, I should have showed you this. So in 2018, Ducey wins by a safe margin, tilt margin for DeSantis, Kemp wins by a lean margin, and Rhode Island is a safe margin. Mike DeWine win by a lean margin, Pritzker win by a safe margin, Kansas by likely margin barely, and as many of you know, Colorado by a safe margin. While for the race in Connecticut, it was around 3%, and now the race is going to be a rematch between Ned Lamont and Bob Stefanowski. And let's go to the polling. As you can see, Stefanowski has gotten a lot more momentum recently, and bear in mind that a lot of these undecided voters will in fact vote for the GOP because of midterms and all that sort of stuff, and voter regrets. So I think that, in my opinion, this race will be closer than maybe what most people anticipate. I'm leaning towards this being a lean win for Ned Lamont, and he wins here by, I'm guessing, towards either 2 to 4%. I think that's quite reasonable, but it could easily drop to a tilt margin, if not flip. But for now, I'm gonna put this as a lean win for him. And now for the governor race in Wisconsin. So in 2018, Tony Evers won here by 1.1% against Walker, the incumbent, I believe so. And now he's going to try to run for re-election, while for the Republican primary, it's between two people, Clevefish and Tim Mickles, who is Trump endorsed, but that does not mean you're going to win the primary. That has happened before where Trump endorsed people have lost, so you can see it's kind of neck and neck. And now for the polling in this race, let's go to the polling right here. I hope my mic is working. And now you can see that these polls are kind of meh. And here's my prediction at the moment. I believe that the GOP is overestimating their chances, but because some people are putting likely are, and I just don't think that will happen unless the economy goes down the bin 2008 style. But for now, I see either Clevefish or Tim Mickles winning here by a lean margin of 2 to 4%. So let's just go to Minnesota. For the race in Minnesota, as you can see, Tim Walz was almost able to win here by a safe margin in 2018, and now the race, he's going to try to run for re-election once again, an incumbent running for re-election just like we saw with Tony Evers. And now for the Republican primary, it's going to be Scott Jensen with Matt Birk as his running mate, which I find quite funny because he is a former football player, and that's just funny on my head. And you can see the polling, you can see Scott Jensen has gotten more momentum recently, and the undecided voters are really going to scare Tim Walz and the Democrats. Most likely, in my opinion, what will happen is that I believe Democrats will be able to win here by a lean margin, barely of 1% to 1.25%. I think that I underestimated the chances of the Democrats winning Minnesota, and I just changed that in this prediction. And now for the race in Michigan. So let's just go to Michigan. In 2018, Whitmer was able to win here by a likely margin of almost 10%. She will also run for re-election in 2022, and the Republican primary is a big issue for the GOP. It was going to be James Craig, but he failed to qualify, quite embarrassingly, and now it's probably going to be Tudor Nick Dixon or Soldano, depends on who gets the Trump endorsement. That will be quite a big issue in this primary, because as you can see, a lot of undecided voters, so anyone can really win this primary. And for the general election polling, most people are saying between a Tossup, tilt D, or lean D. Likely D is way off in my opinion. And in my opinion, what will happen is that the momentum within the GOP the Michigan GOP has been terrible, and I don't see that changing, and which is why I have Whitmer barely winning here by a lean margin of 1% to 1.25%. And if the economy gets worse, and if Tudor Dixon is able to have a good campaign, and do well within the Michigan GOP, then I could see this race easily flipping. But I don't think things will get better for them, which is why I think Gretchen Whitmer will be able to win re-election barely by a lean margin for now, but it could easily drop. And now for the governor race in the state of Nevada, 2018, Sisolak, who is now the incumbent, was able to win here by a lean margin of 4%, and now it's going to be Sisolak against Joe Lombardo, a pretty decent nominee by the GOP. And depending on how things go, the Latino vote, let's go to the polling and the economy. You can see that it's really up and down quite a lot. And it really depends on the economy, as I've said before, and the gas prices. And it's really almost anyone's game. I do reckon that the GOP will be able to win here at the moment. I'm not too sure by how much of a margin that will be. It could easily be by a lean margin. But if Joe Lombardo messes up or something bad happens, it could flip. But I believe that for now, I'm actually going to put this as a high tilt state win for the GOP by 0.75% to 1%. At least for now, I'm just going to leave it like that. Moving on to the race in Maine. So, now incumbent Janet Mills won here by 7%, and now in 2022, she's going to face former Republican Governor Paul LePage. And for the polling in this race, in my opinion, it's really anyone's, it's quite close. Both of these candidates are neck and neck, and the undecided voters will decide who wins. But for now, I think the Democrats will be able to win here. I'm not too sure, in all honesty. I think that they will win here by 0.75%, but I would not be surprised if the GOP pulls a win, a W in this state. But for now, I win by 0.75%. And we're getting close to the last state, so for the race in New Mexico. 4 years ago, Grisham was able to win here by a safe margin, but now in this red wave season, this is quite a competitive race because Ron Shetty is quite a decent candidate by the GOP in this race, and I believe that if we go to the polling, it's really quite close. Bit of a not as up and down, but quite a neck and neck race. And some people have this as Grisham won, Ron Shetty won, a lot of undecided voters still. And if we go to the polling, the predictions, most people have this as a Democrat win. But my hot take is that at the moment, because of the poor economy, it has gotten better, the gas prices and stuff, but I expect it to dip once again. And come November, Ron Shetty should be able to win this race by a tilt margin as well. I'm not too sure of the margin, similar to what in Maine, but I think it's going to be 0.5% to 0.75% maybe. Who knows, but I think that GOP wins in this race. And now for the two last races. So, for the race in Pennsylvania, well, for the Democrats who cannot run due to term limits, won here by 17%. Now, 4 years later, in 2022, this race is between Josh Shapiro, Attorney General, against Republican Doug Mastriano. And let's just go to the polling because we already know the nominees and predictions. Most pollsters have this as lean D or tilt D, but in my opinion, it's really a close race, 3%, but this were taken almost a month ago, and the undecided voters, as I've said time and time again, they're gonna tend to vote for the opposition party during midterms. If Doug Mastriano is able to not mess up, he should be able to win here by a tilt margin of 0.25% to 0.5%. It really depends, because if he messes up the debate, then this could really just become a true toss-up. But for now, I have this as a win for the GOP. And yeah, let's just go to one of the closest races, alongside Pennsylvania and other ones, to the race in Oregon. In all honesty, I believe this is one of the most interesting races in this cycle, so Kate Brown was able to win here by 6%. Now in 2022, she cannot run because of term limits, and Tina Kotek, who is quite similar to her, is going to run for the Democrats. And as I was saying, now for the GOP, it's going to be Christine Drazan and Betsy Johnson, who is an independent, kind of center left, will run as an independent third party. And for the polling in this race, if you know, recently, Betsy Johnson has gotten way more momentum than what most people previously thought. You know, she's polling at least in the 18-19% area, if not more, which is a big issue for the Democrats in this race. If things get worse and the economy gets even worse, this will be the absolute worst case scenario for the Democrats. If it wasn't for Betsy Johnson, I would put this race easily as a lean or likely win for the Democrats, but this is by far the hardest state for me to call, and if I could, I would leave this state as a true toss-up, but I know a lot of you would hate it if I did that. So, for now, unless the economy crashes in the future, I see Kotek winning here by a tilt margin of 0.25%, but if come November the economy crashes and things get worse, then this will probably flip for the GOP. And yeah, so as you can see, the Republicans win with 31 seats against the Democrats' 19 seats. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.